But how do you do that, right? So if families are coming in distrusting, if they have their feelings based on their school experience, how do we build trust?
Provide them space for voice. Provide them space where they're able to contribute to the school community. Provide them space. Be a good listener, an active listener when they come in. Be transparent with them when you're having conversations with them.
All right, guys, I have a special treat for you today. I know you're probably thinking like, is this twinning? This is a twin sister here? No, this is not a twin sister. Your TV is not, or computer is not playing tricks on you. I have my actual sister in the building with us today. So we have Shantay McKinily, and she'll talk about herself and introduce herself. And guys, I want you to welcome her into the circle, because this is a special Circle Time Conversations that I am so excited to get into. Today, we're going to continue talking about trauma, Shantay. So we've been talking about trauma for the past couple episodes. It's critically important. I know it's a passion of yours. But today we're going to talk about how trauma impacts how children experience life, how they learn, how they trust, how they begin to love. Also, as educators, we want to make sure that we are in our aim to help, are not doing anything that's going to cause more harm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, of course, I know your background because I know all the wonderful things that you have done, but my family here does not. So take a moment and tell them a little bit about yourself. Tell them why you're so passionate about this work. And what I'm excited about, guys, is that my sister is such the bomb. She can talk about it from all different levels. She can talk about it from a community organizer, from a teacher, from a principal lens, principal of a high school and elementary school, I might add. But you know what? I'm telling your story. I'm telling your story. You tell your story. You tell your story.
Oh, thank you. So I am, again, Shantay McKinily. I'm director of the Positive School Center with the University of Maryland School of Social Work, and I am an assistant clinical professor there. I come to this work. I was a principal I served Baltimore City Schools for 20 years. I was a principal for 8 of those years. And it was, I want to say, one of the best jobs I ever had. In that work, I just started to think about, like, how do we transform schools? Like, what does that look like? So in my role as the director of the Positive School Center, I have 11 community schools, right? Because that is making sure that schools are the community. They're not separate from the community. A college and career access program. And then also our intensive climate collaborative, where I and a team of coaches train on restorative practice, trauma responsiveness, SEL, racial equity, and just community family voice. So it's ensuring that community and students are all merging together for a common goal.
When I think about that, and I'm not throwing up a Delta sign.
You're throwing up a Delta sign.
I'm doing a triad. It's a triad, right? Uh-huh. So it's a triad of what it takes to all come together. Yeah. And that is so important. And I want you to talk a little bit about, why that is important to have all 3 sectors, family, school, community coming together. And more importantly, I want you to dig a little bit deeper into that training piece that needs to happen at the school. Because in our past episode, we talked about how the environment played a critical role in how children show up. And sometimes trauma shows up from outside spaces that are not a part of the school. And so, as an educator, as a district administrator, we have to deal with that. And we have to make sure that classrooms are equipped and teachers are equipped to deal with that. So talk a little bit about how teachers, how do you help prepare teachers to be responsive?
Right. So most of our work is training teachers and supporting them in restorative practice. So I want to go back a little bit. So we operate from a human-centered kind of framework where it is really treating everyone past COVID, everyone is if they've experienced some level of trauma, right? And I think that that is a very holistic way to operate in a school. So we train and support teachers around not just identifying who experienced trauma, who they may assume experienced trauma, but really working with the whole class. So we train them in restorative practice, which is a way that it's holding students accountable with love. And we look at trauma just a little bit differently. Yes, we know that there is a survey, ACEs survey, that students and a lot of people lean into. But if you focus on ACEs, then what you're really doing is you're focusing on the home. And a lot of times we can begin to problematize the home instead of really, and not consider the community adverse experience or socially engineered trauma that really impacts students and really causes the manifestation of the behaviors that you're seeing, right? So we try to support teachers in thinking that way, because if they can think outside of the home, or your mother, like your mother's doing this, or your mother's doing this, or your mother's doing this, or this is what your dad is doing, and allow them to empathize a little bit more, considering that trauma, that there is a such thing as socially engineered trauma. There is a such thing as community adverse experiences. And so parents and family members that are raising children are just a manifestation of that. And so if we can provide a little bit of empathy for them, then they will look at students and families just a little bit differently.
I love that. And that takes work.
It does.
Because there's so many biases at play. And before you can start to empathize with community and family, you have to start to address that as well.
Right. So we look at this as like our work is a self journey. So whenever people come to my trainings or anything that I do, I let them know, like, I know you're here for me to tell you how to fix kids, but we don't fix kids. What I really want you to do is I want you to take this self journey, because once you can identify the trauma in yourself, then you can really empathize and really think about like how it may be impacting other people. So in all of our trainings, it is a self journey, whether it's a racial equity training, whether it's a restorative practice training. It is, how is this showing up for me? Because if I could become better, then I can model it for other people. And we're looking at SEL. Like SEL and restorative practices is not something that we do, it's actually who we are. And I think that if people embody that, if educators specifically embody that, then they model that for students.
And I know people are probably getting tired of me saying this, but it goes back to, when you know better, you do better. Start right here. Start with me. Heal me. Once I'm healed people can help people. Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you brought up community schools when you talked a little bit about your work and how you're impacting things in the Baltimore area. Can you talk a little bit more about the holistic approach that needs to happen? I know sometimes in schools, we feel like, oh, if we can just get the teacher together, right? We know one person can't do it all, right? And nor should there be one person to heal every child in the school, right? But we do know that it's important for children to have that one person that they feel like they can go to, right? So talk a little bit about the importance of community and the role that community plays in this work.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I think that there definitely has to be one trusted person. And I often like to think about people dismantling this thought of teachers, dismantling this thought that they're able to fix everyone. And they're not fixers, right? So like it does take community. So it's essential. I appreciate schools that I don't want to say it's essential, but I appreciate schools that really invest in the community school model. So the community school model is going to have a dedicated person there that is a connector to resources, a dedicated person there that's going to focus on those parental trainings that you may want to have around trauma, around restorative practice, around money management, around job, career fairs or doing a resume. So that one person is the connector to bring in resources to the school, and they kind of fill the gap where the school principal, because I know as a previous school principal, I couldn't do everything. I couldn't. I tried, but you just can't do it. And I think the community school coordinator and the community school model fills gaps that a principal may miss. And it also, if you really think about it, it supports the teachers, it supports the students, and it supports the community, because it really it creates a bridge almost like a holistic connector for all resources, or a hub for all resources to be in a school.
Well, what that sounds like to me, because I speak early childhood, you speak elementary, middle, you speak middle and high school, and I speak early childhood. What that sounds like to me is our preschool programs, particularly our Head Start model, our Preschool for All model, where parent involvement and engagement is a critical part, where community partnerships is a part of the program model. And what I'm hearing you say in community school is that similar approach, right? We had to have parent meetings to educate our parents, to teach them not only how to advocate for themselves and their families, but also how to educate them, and bring in those key trainings and development that may make them a better parent or make their household a better place to be. I also see what you're saying is it's this freed person, right? So it allows this support structure for building out community, allows the principal to still be a principal and still be the leader of the building. It allows the teacher to be the instructional leader within the classroom, but still making sure that there is connection to school from the community by partnering, finding the right community partners that may need to come into the school space. It's really creating that hub. And for our early childhood programs, that's what it is. The early childhood program is the hub. So we're identifying community collaborations. We're identifying community partners. We're understanding that, it's bigger than school, right? It's a community.
And I think that, if utilized properly, so community schools are a hub, and they can be utilized in a way. So like, for your example, if you had a Head Start program or early learning program, and you're really thinking about what are some of the issues that are going on with this student, right? And that's elementary. So I was a principal K-8 in high school and all the things. You can have a community school coordinator in a meeting where you're like, okay, so the student is not just showing up to school on time. The student is not doing this. And the community school coordinator, who is grounded in creating partners for the school, can say, oh, I could just find them a resource for this. Before you do a student support referral, before you do an IEP referral, before you do any of those things, there may be outlying things that may impact students. And so the community school coordinator can first, as a first line of defense, find some partners that may be able to connect parents and students to resources, and then see how they're progressing before we even move on to over-identifying students.
I love it. And that's the importance of, all the important collaborations and knowing your community and knowing what resources are available in schools. So even with all the things that schools are doing to be healing centers and to ensure that they're the right tools, curriculums, and resources and staff in place to be a support to students who are experiencing trauma or have experienced trauma, families are still coming in with their guards up, right? And they're still showing up with harm. So what can we do, or how can we continue to help with that?
I think the biggest barrier, and this could be in any of my roles, the biggest barrier to families feeling safe, or I always push on this notion of safety. I think about being brave, like a brave space, is trust. And especially like being a professor at the University of Maryland School of Social Work, when people hear social work, they automatically, especially in certain communities, they automatically feel like we're there to take their kids. They can't share with us. They can't share that they're being evicted. They can't share that these things are happening because we are going to take their kids away. Well, really, like our program it's really to mitigate how many students are referred to Child Protective Services. But just to go back to this idea of trust, to create spaces where families feel like they can trust.
But how do you do that, right? So if families are coming in distrusting, if they have their feelings based on their school experience, how do we build trust?
Provide them space for voice. Provide them space where they're able to contribute to the school community. Provide them space. Be a good listener, an active listener when they come in. Be transparent with them when you're having conversations with them to say, oh, thank you for sharing that. And if you need to go further, take a further step. I need to really report this to whomever, or I'm going to help you with your eviction. Or, and it's also just being kind. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a difference between being nice and being kind. I think and that lends itself to restorative practice. It's really holding families and people and the people that we work with accountable in a space of love, right? So it is being a great listener. It is supporting them when being there when they need you. Having an open door policy where they're able to express what's going on with them. Having resources. That's where the community schools come back in for them if they're being evicted or their lights are being turned off. Just being a space. Another thing is honoring cultures and honoring just who they are and let them be able to see that in the school and in the space. And then they will feel they'll feel warm and they'll feel welcome in those spaces enough to kind of share because they'll feel a part of it. Yeah. A lot of times people don't trust because they don't feel a part of something.
Or there has been some past trauma.
Yes.
And it's blocking them. And we talked in another episode about triggers, right? Mm-hmm. So even if they start to hear something that sound like it may be what y'all did before, I got my guard up and now I'm distrusting, which means I'm not being my true self. I'm not coming to the table. So I do see that we have to be mindful of how we honor and how we respect.
And how people show up. So I tell people all the time when they talk about a lot of parents push back on this idea of special needs services for their child. Mm-hmm. But if they were a special needs student and they're coming in based on their experience as a special needs student, of course, they're going to give you some resistance when you're talking about giving their child an IEP because they don't want them to be labeled, right? So it is we have something called the SHARP framework, where it's really looking at the whole background of the community that we're serving and the people that we serve. So understanding that people are coming in with some stuff, just like we're teaching and we're leading with some stuff. But also being able to acknowledge that and being open to receive people as they are and as they show up. Because sometimes you are going to receive some resistance, but it's not, and not personalizing that, knowing that it's not you, it's just the experiences that they come in with.
Yeah. So this conversation has been so rich. And first, I would just want to say thank you. I appreciate you. But what it's really highlighting to me is that schools are doing the work. They're really working to become healing spaces, community schools that offer the right resources and supports, not only to students, but to families. And so we're moving in the right direction. And it's just really a good testament to hear and see and feel that as an administrator within the district. But now we're going to transition to my favorite game, Red Light, Green Light. And this is a space, Shantay, where we demystify, right? We demystify and we elevate truth. And so here at Circle Time Conversations, we are all family, and this is a safe space. And I got to keep saying that because when we talk about trauma, folks, can be a little reserved, right? Because they don't want to feel judged. And it's okay. This is a judgment-free zone. All right. So as we play this game today, I'm going to ask you some questions and you'll use these paddles to answer. So green is a go, and that's correct. And that sounds right. And that feels right. Yellow is, maybe it's a go, maybe it's not, but let me give you some clarity. And then red is, that's a myth. That is just not true. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay. All right. So we're going to start. I'm going to ask you a question. So are you ready?
I am.
All right. Let's do it. All right. Here we go. Here's the first question. So here's the first statement. Here's the first statement. All right.
Okay,
Are you ready?
okay,
Here's
I'm
the first
ready.
statement.
I'm ready.
Teachers should stay neutral when families are sharing experience or trauma. Why did you say that? I agree too.
I definitely think they should stay neutral because depending on their response, it could create a barrier to families. Like they may respond in a way and a family be like, oh, I'm not sharing anything else with them. And I understand that sometimes teachers may get triggered, but somehow they have to figure out how to stay neutral so that they are not exacerbating whatever the family could be going through. And they want to make sure that they're building the key to all this is relationships. They want to make sure that they're building relationships. So if they're neutral, then the family may come to them with other things and talk to them about other things.
I agree. I think all the points you made, and I think sometimes as adults, we have the ability to make it about us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes we want to get into this competition. Well, you think that happened to you? Well, let me tell you what happened to me. Ma'am, this is not that conversation, right? It's not a competition of who has the most trauma, right?
It's not Trauma Olympics.
It's
not the Trauma Olympics. No, it's not.
So we want to, so I agree. Staying neutral, really activating those listening skills, really to your point, opens the door for families to share more, right? Because they're already nervous and feel some kind of way of bringing their personal business into some of these spaces. So, I love that question. And I know some folks are like, well, what they mean, how do you stay neutral? We're going to role play a non-neutral way to respond to that. So Shantay, you're the teacher. I'm the parent. All right. Miss Jones, I just wanted to come and tell you that I'm leaving my husband. We're getting a divorce and I'm tired. I'm tired of being married. He doesn't respect me. And I just wanted you to know because I'm going to tell John and, I don't know how John's going to act because he might be tired of his daddy too. I don't know, but I know I am and I'm through.
Woo, girl. When I was getting a divorce, I know because I had to tell my child. And then, so my child took it okay. But really, let me just tell you about my divorce. Because during my divorce, it was a whole situation. And my husband, he was not a good person at all. And that's insane.
Insane. Now, I'm talking directly to my people in the chat. Do you think I care about her divorce? No. It's about me. It's about my family. It's about John. Okay, so talk a little bit about why that was wrong. I just saw it from my perspective as a parent, but now you talk from an educational stance why that may not be the right response.
It probably wasn't the response because I shouldn't center myself. You're really coming to me to share what's going on. And you're sharing because it may impact how the child shows up in class, right? And so it was important for me not to center myself because I got off on a whole tangent talking about my divorce with my husband.
So now let's same question. Let's do it from a positive response. So Miss Jones, I am divorcing my husband. It was a really hard time. He's getting on my nerves. I'm tired of him, but I'm about to tell John, and I don't know how John's going to show up in school, but I just wanted you to know because John might be tired of him too. I don't know, but I just wanted to tell you, just so you know.
I appreciate you so much for sharing that with me. Is there any resources that you may need from us? And if not, then I will make sure that I communicate with you if I see any changes in your child's behavior.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so why was that a better response?
Because one, you're building a rapport with the parent and saying, like, is there anything that we could do? Because you want the parent to know that the school has some supports for them. And then also, you're also letting the parent know that if there's any changes in behavior, because that's really the concern. Like, while I'm going through this divorce, I don't want my child to be impacted. So if my child is being impacted, can you notify me if there's changes in behavior, grade, like in the first signs, right? It's making them aware so that the teacher can be a little bit more vigilant in how she interacts with the child.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to do one more red light, green light, and then we're going to wrap up with our take-home pack because I always give my family homework. And I always give them something to do. Next question. If a caregiver is hard to reach or reactive, they must not care. What's your answer?
Oh,
Why did you say that?
that does not, like, life is lifing for everyone. And so just because a parent doesn't react in the ways in which we want them to react doesn't mean that they don't care about their child. And I think that that's our bias comes into play with that, right? Depending on how we grew up, depending on our culture, depending on how we show up, we think that they should respond in a certain way. And that's not necessarily the ways in which they should respond. So just because a parent doesn't respond or they're reactive, you don't know that parent could have got fired that day. It could have been an eviction notice that day. And you're calling them, telling them about their child. And yes, they care, but life is life in the world. Like, there's so many things going on in the world.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, for us to make that assumption to say because they didn't answer when I called or because they're not responding when I send communication or send information, they don't care, that caregiver or family doesn't care. I think it speaks more to us and how we are interpreting, because it's an assumption and we're making an assumption based off of a hurt place within us because we're looking at it as the glass is half empty versus full. So we're teeing into a negative space.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the conversation. We're going to end with our take-home pack. And one thing I want you to do, because here at Circle Time Conversations, we center in, continuing the conversation and keeping the conversation going. So I'm going to turn it over to you to give families something you want them to recall or remember from this episode.
One thing I want them to recall or to take away from this episode is two things. One, that there are resources in schools, right? To build relationships and with the teacher, with administrators, and find ways to find a trusted person in the school so that they can get those resources. And then also, like, whenever we're having this deeper conversation about trauma, I always want to just remind families that, trauma is not necessarily, it's not your fault. And so we are, as people, trying to be the best people that we can be, right? You're trying to be the best parent you can be. I'm trying to be the best Shantay that I can be. And so just because we have experienced trauma, it's not a period, it's a comma. Good things can come out of it. And don't think of yourself as the problem. Think of yourself as a way that we can create it's almost like broken glass. Like, broken glass can create a beautiful mural, right? Trauma those incidents could happen, but beautiful things could come out of it in the end.
I love it. And I think my homework for you, family, is to continue to, think about resources and connections to organizations in your community that may help you navigate through traumatic spaces in your life, and also share this podcast, and also make talking about trauma normal in your household or within your friend groups or within your community. And last but not least, subscribe, share, connect, leave us messages in the chat. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for joining us. And Shantay, thank you for being here.